Hello, Wednesday. It's, this is Business Pants. What's happening? Wait, this is Business Pants. I don't sound right today, Matt.
You don't you don't feel it?
I don't know. I think something going on in my head. You got to like make me sound more manly in the or
And
womanly. Whatever. I don't care.
in post production, I can reduce your voice by an octave.
Okay. If I knew what that meant, I can't. I can't. See what that is.
Then you
This is
can talk like this.
We are Free Float Media. This is Business Pants, snark-based fact. And that's the important part there is not the snark, people, so forget about it. It's the fact part. It's all facts. A few opinions, but it's based on more than 2 decades of deep industry experience and knowledge.
Do you actually think the important part is the facts?
I just want people to know that this is there's a serious angle to this. Like, this is well researched. It's pre-planned, pre-produced, thought out. Okay, it's not just a couple of guys just winging it. I mean, kind of is, but
I laugh at that assertion. What's on the agenda today?
do we have an agenda? We have 3 things we're talking about today. It'd be helpful if I had them right in front of me. We're gonna do a little game. It's called Upside or Downside, and we're talking about the coronavirus. Upside or downside. So that game's for you, Matt Moscardi.
I like that idea.
Then we're back into our pit of
Despair.
Despair. We're talking a little bit about a fake news law out of Singapore and deep fake political ads being used in India. So we're going to Asia.
Deep fakes are happening?
Yeah, and then finally we are wrapping on more deep fakes, but this time it's meat-based deep fakes. So Burger King has a new kind of meat, Matt. Stay tuned.
Another one? I thought they already had the Impossible Whopper. There's so many new kinds of meat.
No, this new one is very exciting. It's very unique, so just stay tuned.
Wow, we're going to break news right here. Let's harp in because I want to get to the meat at this point.
I don't know where. Okay. All right. Ready?
I'm ready. I'm born ready.
Let's play a little game called Upside or Downside. This is the subject is the coronavirus. The world's currently it's the world's favorite pandemic. So I'm gonna.
What else is on that list?
I'm gonna read a little blurb. An effect of the coronavirus, and you, Matt Moscardi, are going to tell me whether you think it's an upside or downside.
All right,
that's just a simple game. Simple.
I like
Ready?
simple. Yeah.
One of the deadliest epidemics in decades has dented energy demand and industrial output in China, cutting carbon dioxide emissions by about 100 million metric tons, close to what Chile emits in a year.
Wow.
So what do you think there?
That's got to be a pandemic upside, right?
Upside, yeah. I mean, of course, that means that there are people in the supply chain of things suffering. I suppose, like out of work. That's a big one.
Out of work and or dying. I mean,
right. Well,
it's true that less
people are always dying, Matt. All right.
Less. What is this? What are you, Nietzsche?
Just saying. No, I don't. I mean, like actual death, not philosophical existential death.
Well, every time we start this podcast and live stream, I die an existential death. Oh. I would go with upside.
So do the Twitch fans.
This is one of maybe very few upsides of coronavirus.
So is there a learning lesson? Do you think people will take like we talked about last week? The fires in Australia finally provoking politicians there to do something. Do you think that this potential pandemic could have the same effect on our manufacturing sector?
The amazing thing has actually been the adaptability of consumerism to coronavirus pandemic. Like it immediately went to, and we talked about this yesterday, like contactless fast food delivery. Mm-hmm. That seems like a highly adaptable system to continue to consume, arguably something that is not always necessary to consume. And I don't mean food. I mean fast food in particular.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that that there is an upside to this. That isn't we continue to you know consume too much.
We'll see how that changes when. Well, okay, let's
The
go on to the
minute
next
it's
story.
over, I think that upside's dead.
Let's go to the next story because there's a crying billionaire who is predicting it'll be over soon. So let's go to the next one. Here's a quote from our favorite snowflake billionaire, Leon Cooperman. Okay, this is what he says. And it's a great way to start any conversation, especially when you're on CNBC and you're there presumably for your intelligence and insight. But here's what he says. I don't have any insight into the coronavirus, but I assume, with all the great minds of the world focused on this problem, that in 3 or 4 months this will become resolved. But there are things that are very troubling to me. Number one is Bernie Sanders. That's a great. That those two sentences reflect the mind of a real mastermind there. I mean, there's a lot going on there.
So is this an upside or downside?
Yeah,
Is
what
that
do you
the
think?
question?
Upside or downside? What do you think's going? What do you think?
Well, I think clearly it's an upside, and I think
Yeah.
I think it for a very obvious reason.
Which is
Because if Leon Cooperman, who continues to give his opinion about anything market related, has decided that coronavirus will be solved in 3 or 4 months,
yes, exactly.
then it breeds a lot of hope about climate change and the climate crisis or other pandemics for which Leon Cooperman, who made billions of dollars at a hedge fund and Goldman Sachs, is well qualified to discuss.
Yeah, I love this juxtaposition here. He has zero insight, and yet he thinks it'll be solved in 3 to 4 months. So take that to the bank.
I'm glad, though, he is getting equal opportunity about his in going after Sanders, because he had some nasty things to say about Elizabeth Warren, and turns out nobody likes a progressive anywhere.
I will say that to be fair to Leon, his attacks on Warren were much more vicious.
Good, at least for being
I
fair.
don't think although I did learn in my research today that he compared Obama to Hitler. So,
I actually, in researching a little bit more about Cooperman and things that he said, like he is very angsty about the 1% getting vilified.
the world's preeminent snowflake billionaire, Leon Cooperman.
I've not heard that level of angst. He did have,
Right.
he had some things to say.
Up next, upside or downside. This is a simple fact, simple stat coming out of the coronavirus. Men are dying more than women.
Yeah, we mentioned this
Upside or downside.
in this framing. I like this framing.
Yeah.
We mentioned this the other day. I mean, it's got to be an upside for corporate boards everywhere.
Yes, for women in leadership in general, because now there's no more excuse. The men are dying, right? I mean, that's
so
it. We've
morbid.
solved the case. So call us up, BlackRock, State Street, all you thinkers out there. We figured it out.
It's so morbid.
Up next, Adidas, or Adidas, as my daughter, who's now
European.
Euro snob. Adidas has seen business activity tumble roughly 85% because of the coronavirus. Is it upside or downside in that one? What do you think?
Did we need that many sneakers?
I don't know. I really don't think so.
I mean,
I have friends who do, but yeah, I definitely don't.
Just stop me when we get to a downside story. These all feel sort of upsidey.
Yeah, this one parallels the first one about the dent in emissions, because I mean we're buying less shit. Like, it's got to be okay. Finally, this is one that's covering artificial intelligence. A new AI-powered diagnosis system promises to detect new coronavirus cases with an accuracy rate of up to 96%. Alibaba says the new algorithm can complete disease recognition process within 20 seconds. So upside or downside there for AI? What do you think?
I feel like this is more downside than upside.
This is when people will start to trust AI, and that's going to lead to some.
No, I don't totally understand the technology behind this, nor do I. I'm more curious who owns it.
Well, Alibaba seems to. So that's a win for big data.
It's sort of a win for Yahoo, who I think still owns their Alibaba stake.
So
Um,
Marissa Mayer finally comes out on top.
I don't I don't think I mean, look, this is an inevitability that AI starts doing diagnoses.
Hmm.
And full disclosure, my wife is a surgeon, so in
Yeah,
medicine.
I was gonna say in China, but no.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's a useful advance, but like the unintended consequences of it are very, very fuzzy to me. And if I'm like investing in the future of medicine, I'd be a little bit worried that I'm investing in the future, like what Facebook has become. Like it sells you on
Mm.
this great social connection and good, and it turns into a delivery system for terribleness.
All
AI
right.
feels
Yeah.
like it has it's
So let's
great.
move on. Okay, let's move on to the next category though, next subject, because that's since you mentioned Facebook.
All right,
Let's harp me over.
let's get into it.
All right. All right. So Facebook has expressed concern after it was ordered by Singapore to block access to a news site's page. Singapore said the fringe site States Times Review had broken a newly introduced fake news law and repeatedly conveyed falsehoods. So Facebook, it followed its orders. It blocked access, but it said that the order was deeply concerning and added that the directive could stifle freedom of expression. I remind everyone out there that Facebook over the weekend was calling for more regulation. And now that they have a fake news law that they're dealing with in Singapore, they are taking the other side of the fence here and they're saying that they're deeply concerned. So
I
what
mean,
do you got to
they're
say?
not. So they're. I think this is.
More
Isn't this
confusion
just it? But this
or
isn't a.
confusion?
This is like. This is what every company does. It's like, please regulate stuff that we want you to regulate, but don't regulate stuff that we don't want you to regulate.
Yeah.
And you can't really, if you're Mark Zuckerberg and you're doing a tour of Europe and you're saying we need better regulation for big tech and data and privacy and blah, 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 blah. And Singapore does that, even if you disagree with it, even if it is actually used to stifle freedom of expression or free speech or to control the masses. You can't pick and choose. You can't go asking for regulation and then say, no, 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 not that regulation, some other regulation.
Well, that's the glory of Facebook and corporate PR in general is that they kind of get to play it both ways. They follow the orders of Singapore, and then they come out with their fake hand wringing, and they're like, "Oh, we're deeply concerned."
Look, the regulation that's required of big tech is they
Hmm.
can't all be dual class fake public companies. You need checks and balances at the corporate level before you start demanding checks and balances at the government level, because a lot of the choices that they've made, they may not have made if they didn't have like this insular buddy board and a dual class share system. I just
Yeah, I hope that is part of any new regulation. I
That
really
would
do.
be you. That would be the amazing irony if Europe was
Yeah,
like, sure, no more dual class.
yeah, exactly.
That would
All
be
right.
amazing.
In a similar story, because this one involves WhatsApp, which is also owned by Mark Zuckerberg. Control dominated by Mark Zuckerberg. A
Good word.
political party in India has partnered with a political communications firm, the Ideas Factory (IDAZ). I just wanted to say that. I don't know. Sorry.
The
To
bzzz.
create positive campaigns using deep fakes to reach different linguistic voter bases. So here's how it works. They created a video essentially so that a candidate could speak to a group that speaks a particular Hindi dialect that he does not speak, um, making it seem like that that he was fluent in that dialect. And so this is the deep fake it created. The deep fakes were distributed across about 6,000 WhatsApp groups, reaching approximately 15 million people. So yeah, the dawn of deep fake political ads where we pretend to even speak a language we don't speak. What do you think about that? That doesn't seem good, does it?
I
I mean,
mean, it's just
the
exhausting.
said the fabricated video was used widely to dissuade the large Haranavi, I butchered
Oh,
that,
wow.
speaking migrant worker population in Delhi from voting for the rival political party. So it is, I mean, come on. That just sounds wrong.
I mean, is that freedom of expression?
I don't know what
This is
that
the
is.
problem because
How about you learn the language?
Mark Book wants to be the one to label what is freedom of expression and what isn't.
Right,
And
that's true.
that's
Yeah.
fundamentally a problem. And people should not
Ugh,
be allowed to say anything that they want. I mean,
yeah, well,
that's they we can't. Actually, maybe the bigger problem, and I've said this many times on this show. People just shouldn't really be connected to one another. I think we really just need to. You need to go back to hating one another and only talking to our neighbors snarkily behind other people's back. That's what we need to do.
all right, let's move on. Yeah.
You're just gonna agree.
Yeah. Deep fake meat. Okay, so this is a subject area that we usually talk about our meatless meats, right? Like our Beyond Meats. What's it called? Impossible burgers and
Impossible
all that crap.
burgers,
But now we're gonna. This
Zen
is
meat,
this
all
is like a
about Zen meat.
Tony Hawk moment. Like I don't even know what to think here. This is like a 720, a 360. This one's making my head spin.
How old are
So,
you?
so Burger King, old enough. Burger King is basically now proudly saying that they're selling meat. Okay, so here it is. Burger King. Do you have the picture up, by the way?
I do. I do.
Okay. So Burger King is removing artificial preservatives, colors, and flavors from its Whopper sandwich. The burger chain will highlight the change through an ad campaign that Matt is showing here that uses a moldy Whopper with text that reads, "The beauty of no artificial preservatives." The campaign comes as consumers demand more transparency about the ingredients in their food. In other words, ESG in action. Here's the tagline. Here's the quote from the ad that Burger King itself puts out. The beauty of real food is that it gets ugly. So Burger King just basically told us, Matt, that up until this day they weren't selling real food.
Well, it's
No, I mean, come on. I mean, this is crazy to me. I'm sorry, but this is nuts.
I do like it.
I know I'm supposed to be applauding. I'm supposed to be cheering for them. Oh, our meat saviors, but
No,
that's quite an admission.
actually, Burger King, as sort of the fast food offenders go, by all accounts, seems to be not the worst in any way. They took a
I don't even know what
chance.
that means. What does that mean?
I mean, well, I looked through all their ingredients lists, and it was like, there aren't actually a lot of preservatives to begin with in a lot of their
All right.
things. It looked actually
Sure.
pretty good. Not that I'm a nutritionist, but the
Well,
ad campaign is the thing that's like more frightening because it implies we've been selling you
I
poison
know.
for
Yeah.
a really long time
And you've been eating it.
and you love it. And now we're
Yeah.
not doing that. You
Full
should
disclosure,
congratulate us.
in high school, Burger King was our fast food of choice over McDonald's, and I'm going to say that I'm telling you, Burger King, over those periods I stole a lot of your barbecue sauce, so I don't feel bad about it anymore. All right, I feel like we're even now. All right.
It is weird. Well, there was another story that was sort of like this, wasn't there?
Okay, so just as we were going to going live here, I picked up on my news feed. This is the exact same story, but in a different direction. Procter and Gamble skincare brand Olay said it will no longer retouch skin in its advertising. So again, another company peddling you fake bullshit. And here's the thing here's what I love about Procter and Gamble too is that it's going to do this by 2021. So it's going to take about a year for them.
They'll be
to no
done
longer
retouching skin when Delta's done pulling carbon out of the air.
Jesus.
It is a very weird thing. And
This is ESG's fault.
and I still can't figure out whether or not this also applies to the Impossible Whopper, or is this like, because the Impossible Whopper is not meat. So
Right,
is
true.
it not real to begin with, and therefore like
It has preservatives, does it?
I have no idea, but it just seems like all I know is that there is nothing that we buy that isn't somehow killing us, and now companies seem to be happy celebrating the fact that they're not going to kill us a little less. Like
Yeah.
you can equate this to Delta or Microsoft saying we're going to go carbon neutral, right? That's effectively like admitting we've been spewing carbon into the air forever, and it's largely contributed to the climate crisis.
Exactly.
Now we're not going to do that. So we need a round of applause.
Yeah, they're celebrating that they basically lost.
They're celebrating that they basically
we got you guys, right? And and by the way, I have now been staring at this moldy Whopper for about 5 minutes. I gotta tell you, Burger King, this might not be the best way to sell food, because I like, really, it's disgusting, and I don't want to go to Burger King anymore.
Right? I don't want a burger anymore.
That's all I got, man.
I think it's too bad if you're listening to the podcast that you can't enjoy the magic that is the moldy burger on the video.
Google it. Yeah. Or find us online. Find us on where? Twitch or YouTube, or
go on YouTube, go on Twitch.
But if you're lazy, just Google this moldy.
Go on Periscope. No, don't be lazy. Find us.
Oh, good. Yeah, find us. And just tell one person.
This is Damian Rallis over there.
Yeah.
I am Matt Moscardi. We are Free Float Media. This was Business Pants. It is February 19th, 2020 already. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate us, and most importantly, give us to a friend. We do not pay for subscriptions. We do not pay for mass marketing. Yes. Why? Because we believe in you, our listeners. So send us around and don't let us down. Don't let us mold like a Burger King burger. We will be back at you tomorrow. I want to thank our team here, which are the two Courtneys, Dan Rogachnig, John Walsh for art, and Todd Hovanek on our music. We'll be back here again tomorrow with more snarky, fact-based business news. I'll see you then, Damian.
See you, Matt.